Welcome to How to Think Like Shakespeare, an examination of Shakespeare across disciplines. I'm here with Jim Shapiro and Carol Gilligan. And right now we are going to be talking about Shakespeare retold. There's now an entirely separate canon of retellings of Shakespeare. We have, plays, films, novels, even digital media like Shakespeare or Facebook Hamlet. I got the call of a lifetime the other day from a federal appellate judge in D.C. And he said, I'm doing the Shakespeare moot court on the trial of Agincourt. The questions were, did Henry V commit war crimes either in invading France or in killing the prisoners of war? And my answer was yes and yes to both questions.
And did the rest of the panel of lawyers and judges agree with you?
Actually, it was yes. I mean, there was a split, but the majority went with yes and yes with my answers. And I mean, they were both liberal and conservative judges, and I'm not really so focused on the outcome, but rather on the quality of the conversation, that there was a kind of suppleness to it because they were talking about Shakespeare. So obviously we're talking about did George W. Bush commit war crimes and invading Iraq and Afghanistan, the treatment of the detainees violating the Geneva Conventions. If you actually try and have that conversation where everybody has a dog in the fight, there's always blood on the floor. But there's something about refracting exactly the same questions through Shakespeare where people are much more willing to concede points, much more willing to be, I think supple is the word I keep coming back to in the way that they conversed with each other, and it ended up being a much more humane conversation.
Did anybody ask why we still love Henry V even though we know he committed war crimes?
That question, to my memory, did not come up. But what I did come away from the exercise thinking about was actually George W. Bush was very similar to Henry V. It's just that he didn't win his Agincourt. So if he had won his Agincourt, he would have had all the forms of authority that Shakespeare gave to Henry V. I think foreshadowing Weber in this, because Weber says that there's feudal authority, charismatic authority, and legal authority. And Henry V is a perfect storm of all forms of authority. So too was George W. Bush when he was standing on the rubble of 9/11. So that's why people compare Henry V to George W. Bush so often, but he didn't win his Agincourt, so the judgment of history is against him. So my take on this is actually less that we should, make the consistency favor George W. Bush than we should make it disfavor Henry V.
And for me, what's interesting is that we know Henry V acts criminally, not just to the French prisoners, but to his own men. And yet, we're made to feel his charisma and love and admire him at the end of this play, which I hate that feeling that wells up of admiration for him, because he's as Machiavellian as anybody in Shakespeare, but Shakespeare nudges us into that uncomfortable space where we're supposed to applaud him.
Right, and that's his inheritance from Falstaff, I think. That kind of Teflon coating.
It's the final scene with Catherine is not a pleasant scene.
It's a rape scene.
Exactly. What's yours is mine.
That's it. Right. And she has no voice.
And she doesn't even get to speak her own language.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
It.
That's it. Is he showing us something about this kind of heroism? And what happens to a man who has to be really, wrested from his friendship with Falstaff and cast into this role? I mean, in some ways, we could also talk about Obama.
I'm reminded of the line from Emma where it's a visit perfect in being much too short. I feel like each one of these segments would go on for hours. Thank you so much for your insights. But to see more of this conversation, please visit bigthink.com for our Shakespeare series.